guy says, Mr. Walker, and I turned around, I said, yes, and I'm dressed up in my Cheyenne outfit, wearing the gun, hat. And he walked up, and he's very serious, and he said, my name is so-and-so, and I...
What fuels a deep-seated rivalry between two of Western television's towering legends? Two actors, nearly the same height and equally commanding, battling for the top spot in a genre that defined an era. Their careers seemed parallel, yet behind the scenes, tension simmered fiercely, shaping their legacies in unexpected ways. Clint Walker and James Arness weren't just competitors. They represented contrasting paths to stardom in Hollywood's golden age of Westerns. But why did Walker harbor such a strong dislike for Arness? The answer lies in a mix of professional rivalries, personal grievances, and industry politics that few knew until now. Rivalry beginnings. From the very start, the rivalry between Clint Walker and James Arness was quietly brewing beneath the surface of Hollywood's Western boom. Both were towering figures, literally and figuratively, each commanding attention with their imposing stature and distinct on-screen personas. Yet, while millions admired them for their rugged portrayals of lawmen and drifters, behind the camera, the competition was far less friendly. Walker, who embodied the stoic charisma of Cheyenne Bodie, held a deep-seated resentment toward Arness, the longer-running star of Gunsmoke. This was no simple jealousy, but a frustration that had been simmering for years. What made this friction so intense was not just about career rivalry, but a tangled web of personal and professional grievances. Walker constantly felt overshadowed by Arness, who seemed to enjoy a smoother, more privileged path to fame. For years, the two were pitted against each other in public opinion and network decisions, a duel that went well beyond their similar heights. Walker's bitterness was quietly known within the industry, but rarely voiced aloud, giving it an undercurrent that fueled gossip but seldom saw the light of day on camera. Their rivalry was entwined with the Western genre's golden era, a time when stars were not only actors, but icons who defined American ideals of toughness and independence. Both men carried that weight differently, but the spotlight always seemed to favor Arness, who had Gunsmoke's two-decade run, solidifying him as the ultimate TV lawman. Walker, with Cheyenne's shorter yet critically acclaimed run, felt like a promising star repeatedly passed over despite his talents and presence. This gulf between success and recognition sharpened the divide between them. Yet, the reasons behind Walker's animosity were layered and complex, involving more than just screen time or fan adoration. Professional jealousy mixed with personal slights, industry politics, and contrasting approaches to stardom. Walker's path was marked by hurdles and contract battles, while Arness had backing from some of Hollywood's biggest names. These differences seeded a quiet bitterness that grew each year, especially as their careers continued on divergent trajectories. The full story behind Walker's hatred, however, only emerges when considering their origins and early struggles. At first glance, many might assume their rivalry was rooted simply in competition for roles or ratings. However, it was truly a reflection of deeper feelings of unfairness and missed opportunities. Both men were giants in Western television, but the landscape favored one man in ways that felt like betrayal to the other. Though they never publicly clashed in harsh words, Walker's dislike was palpable to those who knew him well, showing how Hollywood's spotlight could create lasting divide. In this world of tough cowboys and silent heroes, rivalry often runs silent but fiercely felt. The dynamics between Walker and Arness also reflected broader themes in Hollywood history, how connections, timing, and luck sometimes outweigh talent and hard work. Arness's leap into the spotlight was boosted by an influential endorsement, whereas Walker had to carve his niche through grit and perseverance. This contrast alone gave Walker a reason to view his contemporary with suspicion and bitterness. Walker's behind-the-scenes struggle, particularly with studio executives, added friction that only fed his growing resentment of what he perceived as Arness's advantage. Clint Walker's path to stardom was far from easy, defined by hard work and rugged determination that set him apart long before Hollywood called. Clint Walker's rise. Born Norman Eugene Walker on May 30th, 1927, in Hartford, Illinois, Clint Walker's early life was shaped by the challenges of the Great Depression. Raised in a hard-working, modest household, he learned the values of perseverance and discipline early on. His mother, a woman of Czech descent, and his father, who labored at an oil refinery, instilled in him a deep respect for honest work. Growing up in a small industrial town, Walker developed an appreciation for the outdoors and physical activity, traits that would later define his Western hero image. Walker left school at a young age to help support his family, taking on a range of demanding jobs often far removed from the glamour of Hollywood. He worked on riverboats, in factories, and later joined the United States Merchant Marine at just 17 during World War II. This experience brought with it a disciplined mindset and a resilience that remained with him throughout his life. His natural athleticism and towering 6 feet 6 inches frame made him well-suited for roles requiring physicality and presence. After the war, Walker kind of drifted through all sorts of gigs, like sheet metal work, door-to-door sales, and later even he worked as an undercover private investigator, sort of, in a low-key way. Still, his striking look and that commanding baritone voice didn't go unnoticed for long. Even without any formal acting training, those rugged features made him fit the whole all-American Western hero image. You know, right away. Friends pushed him on, so he headed to Los Angeles, and first he landed a security job in Las Vegas. That's where talent scouts basically spotted the potential. In the beginning, his acting work was small stuff. He had minor parts, and there was also an uncredited appearance in the biblical epic The Ten Commandments in 1956. But the real break happened when Warner Brothers cast him as Cheyenne Bodie in the TV series Cheyenne, which ran from 1955 to 1963. That show was the first hour-long Western series on television, and it raised the bar for the genre. Seriously, Walker's version of Cheyenne, a principled, stoic drifter with an easy, gentle charm, really connected with a wide slice of the American audience. Cheyenne Bodie was different, not like a lot of Western heroes that came before. Walker brought physical toughness, but also a quiet integrity, and it landed well with viewers. That noble loner type turned into one of his signature roles, so he became one of the most recognizable faces in all of Westerns. Plus, he was willing to do a lot of his own stunts, which made everything feel more real, and fans liked that. By then, this part basically locked him in as a beloved Western icon. James Arness's story, shaped by a combination of talent and influential backing, contrasted sharply with Walker's hard-won climb. James Arness's career path. James Arness, born in 1923, carved his place in Western history as the iconic Marshal Matt Dillon of Gunsmoke, a role he played for 20 years. Unlike Walker, Arness benefited early on from significant industry support, including a strong endorsement from John Wayne, who recommended him for the Gunsmoke role after turning it down himself. This connection provided Arness with a valuable boost in Hollywood, granting him access to roles and opportunities that many aspiring actors could only dream of. His career trajectory seemed more directly guided by powerful influences. Arness stood an inch shorter than Walker at 6 feet 5 inches tall, but like Walker, his towering presence and deep voice made him perfect for the Western hero image. Gunsmoke, premiering in 1955, became one of the longest-running and most successful Western series in television history, solidifying Arness as a household name. His portrayal of Matt Dillon was steady, authoritative, and dependable, qualities that resonated deeply with viewers for 2 decades. This longevity created a pervasive cultural landmark that Walker's Cheyenne never quite matched. While Walker fought battles with studio executives and contract disputes, Arness remained firmly anchored in his role, enjoying a career defined by consistency and widespread acclaim. This stability brought a level of privilege and industry support that contributed to Arness's image as the definitive Western lawman. His Hollywood journey was far less fraught with setbacks, thanks in large part to his early endorsement and network loyalty. This contrast was difficult for Walker to overlook. Arness's career path was sort of defined by professionalism and a fairly reserved public image. Even though people really respected him for his work ethic and the way he held his presence, he often seemed a little more distant when compared to Walker's more approachable and blue-collar vibe. A lot of observers picked up on this. Arness carried himself with an air of quiet dignity, and it sometimes changed how folks thought about him once Hollywood got involved. Meanwhile, Walker, who seemed proud of his rough background and his down-to-earth personality, reportedly looked at Arness's polished Hollywood persona with some suspicion, like it showed a break from the real battles actors go through when they're still rising. And the support Arness got from John Wayne, well, that part can't really be understated. Wayne's clout in Hollywood was huge, and a personal recommendation from him helped Arness slip past a few of the typical headaches and bottlenecks that come up in the entertainment industry. Support like that gave Arness a real edge, so his long-term staying power looked like it came from connections just as much as talent. For Walker, though, who had to build his career without the same kind of patronage, that difference was hard to ignore. It became a major contributor to the widening gap between the two stars. Still, even with all that friction, Arness was also known for how committed he was to his role and how professional he stayed on set. He wasn't publicly mean or sharp with competitors or rivals. He kept a respectful distance from Walker's more personal complaints. At the same time, rumors did float around that their personalities rubbed each other the wrong way at industry gatherings, likely because their attitudes and backgrounds weren't really aligned. Arness's tighter, more controlled demeanor was often set beside Walker's easier-going, direct nature, and that contrast fed off-screen tension that somehow matched what they were doing on-screen. It is against this backdrop of competing histories and Hollywood realities that the full picture of their rivalry begins to take shape, inviting us to explore the personal and professional details that sparked such lasting friction. Contrasting personalities. Clint Walker and James Arness were as different in personality as they were similar in stature, and these contrasts fed into the tension that quietly simmered between them. Walker was known for his approachable, blue-collar charm, the kind of man who seemed relatable to the everyday person. His background as a merchant marine and various labor-intensive jobs before Hollywood gave him a grounded, straightforward approach to life and work. Off-screen, Walker was reportedly warm and affable, traits that endeared him to colleagues yet somehow deepened his disdain for Arness's more reserved demeanor. Arness, on the other hand, carried himself with a certain formality and reserve that set him apart amidst the Hollywood crowd. His polished Hollywood persona and years of steady success cultivated an image of dignity and control, which some perceived as aloof or distant. Industry insiders have noted that he could come across as cool, sometimes more comfortable maintaining a professional distance rather than forming close bonds on set. For Walker, who took pride in his humble roots and blue-collar sensibilities, this difference was more than surface level. It felt like a barrier. The divergence in how they navigated fame and social interaction created underlying friction beyond business competition. Walker's openness and common man attitude contrasted sharply with Arness's somewhat elevated Hollywood bearing. This disparity sometimes led Walker to view Arness as detached from the real struggles faced by actors starting at the bottom and fighting for recognition. While Arness seemed to glide through the industry with the benefit of influential backing, Walker felt he had to prove himself at every turn through grit and persistence. Some sources suggest that Walker believed Arness carried an air of superiority because of the advantages he had received early in his career, especially the endorsement from John Wayne. This perception added a personal dimension to Walker's resentment. Not only did he see Arness as professionally favored, but also as someone who perhaps looked down on his less glamorous path. Whether or not Arness actively fostered that attitude, the mere impression was enough for Walker to harden his feelings. It was a classic clash of self-made grit versus Hollywood pedigree. Despite their differences, both men were, consummate professionals on set, and they kept up some kind of working respect for each other's craft. Neither one really let their personal tensions mess with filming or those public appearances, but still, behind the scenes, Walker's frustration sort of lingered, and it sometimes showed up to the people who were closest to him, like kind of in the background. The insiders made it pretty clear that Walker's dislike wasn't only jealousy, it was also driven by a deeper sense of injustice about how the whole industry operates. To him, Arness wasn't just another actor, more like a symbol of a system that leaned toward connections instead of merit. That idea sat under everything, emotionally. The personality contrast also played into how the two actors dealt with fame, and that spotlight pressure. Walker, with his more relaxed, down-to-earth vibe, would often collide, just awkwardly, with Arness's professionalism and more reserved approach, so you'd get those uncomfortable moments at industry events. There aren't any truly big, widely reported public confrontations, but rumors of subtle clashes and these icy little exchanges have stuck around over the years. Even if they were small things, they kept feeding that quiet rivalry, the one that never fully died out. And it was these differences in character and approach that helped stoke the professional tensions that were already boiling beneath the surface. Industry politics and favoritism. The simmering personal differences between Walker and Arness were magnified by Hollywood's complex politics and favoritism, which played a substantial role in shaping their careers and rivalry. Clint Walker's journey was marked by struggles with studio executives, contract disputes, and a persistent feeling of being undervalued. Warner Brothers, the studio behind Cheyenne, often clashed with him, eventually leading to his temporary departure from the show. These battles left Walker feeling isolated and frustrated in an industry he believed favored others. In contrast, James Arness never faced such publicized conflicts with studios or networks. His career was shepherded with a steady hand, benefiting enormously from early endorsements like that of John Wayne. Wayne's influence was unparalleled in Hollywood, and his recommendation of Arness for the lead in Gunsmoke gave Arness an advantage few could match. This kind of backing translated into a consistent platform and a long-running series that solidified Arness as television's definitive Western lawman. Walker's perception that Arness enjoyed privileged treatment was not unfounded. Hollywood has a long history of network politics determining who gets the best roles and the longest contracts. Arness's Gunsmoke, with its 2 decades on air, was a prime example of this system working in his favor. Meanwhile, Cheyenne's comparatively shorter run and Walker's contractual disputes may have felt like personal setbacks, rather than simple business decisions. This imbalance shaped Walker's narrative of being a talented actor left behind by an industry steeped in favoritism. Further fueling Walker's bitterness was the ongoing comparison by executives, critics, and the public between the two shows and their stars. Gunsmoke was seen as a cultural institution, while Cheyenne, despite its pioneering status as the first hour-long Western on television, never achieved the same iconic reputation. For Walker, this widespread comparison was a constant reminder of the opportunities he felt denied, deepening his resentment not only toward Arness, but also toward the industry's inner workings. The impact of this favoritism extended beyond ratings and contracts. It affected the actor's perceived value within Hollywood circles and shaped the types of roles and projects available to them. While Arness was able to stay firmly in one pivotal role for years, Walker's career path was more tumultuous, leading him to seek film roles and guest appearances elsewhere. This lack of stability contrasted sharply with Arness's enduring presence and further widened the gap in their professional lives. These industry dynamics were compounded by the way the entertainment business rewarded loyalty and connections more than raw talent or hard work. Arness exemplified this with long-term studio support, while Walker's path often seemed blocked by those same gatekeepers. The sense of injustice Walker felt was both personal and systemic. It contributed to a growing bitterness that framed Arness as the favored insider, while Walker saw himself as the hard-working outsider. The contrast between how their personalities clashed and how the industry favored one over the other set the stage for a deeper exploration of what fueled Walker's lasting animosity, the impact of their show's longevity. One of the most striking differences between Clint Walker and James Arness was the longevity of their signature television roles, a disparity that significantly influenced their careers, and Walker's growing resentment. Gunsmoke, starring Arness as Marshal Matt Dillon, aired for an unprecedented 20 years, becoming a cultural institution and defining the cowboy hero for an entire generation. This kind of sustained success gave Arness a stable platform and ensured his enduring place in television history. For Walker, watching Gunsmoke's ongoing dominance was a constant reminder of what his own show had not achieved. Cheyenne, starring Walker, had its own groundbreaking status as the first hour-long Western series on television, running from 1955 to 1963. Though critically praised and popular, it never enjoyed the same length or mainstream endurance as Gunsmoke. This contrast created an uneven playing field in the Western genre, where Walker was often perceived as the almost star, overshadowed by Arness's iconic role. When shows run for 2 decades, they transcend entertainment to become part of the national fabric, a position Gunsmoke firmly held, but Cheyenne fell short of. This imbalance in success and visibility deeply affected Walker's career opportunities. The long run of Gunsmoke meant Arness was consistently in the spotlight, opening doors to other projects and cementing his status as the definitive lawman of Western TV. Walker, meanwhile, often found himself juggling film roles and guest appearances, never quite able to replicate the same level of stability and recognition. The constant comparisons fueled a lingering bitterness, a feeling that he had been denied the chance to fully capitalize on his talents. Walker's often turbulent relationship with Warner Brothers contributed to this disparity as well. Contract disputes limited his ability to maintain a continuous presence on Cheyenne, leading to breaks and uncertainty. This instability contrasted sharply with Arness's steady network support and the studio's willingness to keep Gunsmoke running. Such differences in backing shaped how each actor's career evolved, highlighting the gulf between them in terms of professional security and public exposure. The shows themselves sort of kept drawing different portraits of the Western hero. Walker's Cheyenne Bodie came off like this lone drifter type, still principled and kind of taciturn. You know, a man of few words, but with that deep integrity underneath. Arness's Matt Dillon felt more like the established lawman, holding the frontier steady, a regular fixture in his community with decades of stories sitting behind him. So even if the roles looked similar on the surface, in genre terms, they still pushed distinct images out there. And those images nudged public perception, plus the whole career trajectory. Arness's part sort of naturally kept going longer, while Cheyenne's Wanderer was harder to keep alive as an ongoing, long-running figure. Gunsmoke's long run made a pretty heavy legacy. It ended up influencing so many other shows, and it really locked in Arness's name in Hollywood and in television history too. And because the show was so enormously popular, it also opened more doors, opportunities beyond the series, not just inside it. For Walker, Cheyenne's shorter lifespan and also less mainstream prominence meant a smaller amount of cultural imprint. That gap between staying power and recognition, it basically fed Walker's sense of professional frustration, and it fueled that rivalry with Arness. Beyond the years of airtime, it was a story about survival, recognition, and what it meant to belong in the pantheon of Western legends. Off-screen encounters and tensions. While Clint Walker and James Arness never publicly aired their grievances, their off-screen interactions were reportedly charged with subtle friction rooted in years of rivalry. Industry insiders have shared stories of tense encounters at events and gatherings where their contrasting personalities and professional competition made genuine camaraderie impossible. These moments were often marked by awkward silences and careful politeness, revealing a distance that belied their shared profession and common genre. The undercurrent of rivalry lingered, shaped by years of personal and career differences. Walker's approachable, down-to-earth nature contrasted with Arness's more reserved and guarded demeanor in social settings. This dynamic contributed to a chilly atmosphere when the two crossed paths. While Arness maintained a formal professionalism, Walker's warmth sometimes clashed with what he perceived as Arness's aloofness. Such differences were noticed by those who worked closely with them, adding another layer to an already complex and tense relationship. Rumors persisted that the two had subtle confrontations behind closed doors, though nothing amounted to any direct public feud. At times, they were said to have exchanged curt remarks or displayed barely concealed disdain, especially during industry functions where comparisons between their work were inevitable. These quiet contests offstage mirrored the competitive spirit that defined their on-screen careers, making the rivalry as much an emotional struggle as a professional one. Walker, with his blue-collar background and pride in working his way up, reportedly resented what he saw as Arness's more privileged Hollywood path. Off-screen, this undercurrent of resentment may have manifested in cold interactions and guarded exchanges when the two were in the same room. Sources suggest that Walker felt dismissed by Arness as a lesser talent, further fueling his hostility. Such feelings, though never openly confirmed by either actor, were widely speculated upon within Hollywood circles. On the other hand, Arness's more reserved temperament and his wish to sidestep conflict, well, that usually made him keep a little distance, rather than actually step in and join the conversation. Instead of direct confrontation, he seemed to favor holding tight to professional borders, and Walker might have read that as detached behavior, or even a kind of superiority. That mismatch in how they dealt with tension, it basically blocked any real shot at reconciliation or friendship. So they stayed stuck in this loop of shared caution, where the unspoken resentment just sort of lingered, like a quiet presence in the room. Even after years of simmering tension, both men still carried themselves professionally on set and during public appearances. There are no known moments of aggressive public criticism or anyone sabotaging the other, which suggests they both respected the craft, even if they didn't mesh on a personal level. And that discipline makes their story harder to pin down, because it shows how the rivalry wasn't loud. It was persistent, steady, and almost understated, more like a contest conducted through subtle cues, clipped smiles, and everything that never got said. The history of these silent battles between two giants of the Western genre sets the stage for understanding how their rivalry transcended mere competition, touching on much deeper issues of identity, recognition, and legacy. Legacy beyond rivalry. Despite the deep-rooted rivalry and personal animosity that marked much of their relationship, both Clint Walker and James Arness left behind remarkable legacies that shaped the Western genre for generations. Walker's portrayal of Cheyenne Bodie was groundbreaking, helping to define the archetype of the noble, stoic drifter. His imposing physique, combined with genuine emotional depth, created a hero that resonated with audiences beyond typical Western stereotypes. Even after retirement, Walker's contributions remained influential, continuously celebrated by Western fans and historians alike. James Arness, meanwhile, became synonymous with television Western lawmen through his iconic role as Matt Dillon on Gunsmoke. The show's unprecedented two-decade run established a cultural touchstone for American television. Arness's steadfast and principled character provided stability and moral clarity to countless episodes, creating a figure that embodied the ideals of justice and perseverance. His dedication to the role and the genre earned him a permanent place in Hollywood history, inspiring future portrayals of Western heroes. Both actors' careers extended well beyond their most famous roles. Walker's film work demonstrated his versatility, tackling war dramas and survival stories that showcased his range. Arness, while primarily associated with Gunsmoke, also ventured into film and other television appearances, maintaining a solid reputation for professionalism and craft. Their diverse bodies of work prove that neither man was limited to the narrow confines of television westerns, even if those roles defined their public identities. Importantly, their rivalry, though fueled by frustration and personal differences, did not diminish the respect many had for their talents. Colleagues and fans alike recognized Walker and Arness as consummate professionals who helped elevate the Western genre during its peak. Their contributions created cultural legacies that recognized both their unique strengths and shared commitment to storytelling. This paradox of rivalry coexisting with respect adds richness to their story and offers insight into the complexities of Hollywood relationships. Walker's resilience, both on screen and off, still feels like part of his long-lasting legend, if that makes sense. That near-fatal skiing accident and then his miraculous recovery sort of illustrated the sheer toughness people kept associating with his Western roles. And outside of the cameras, he stayed pretty grounded. You could say his blue-collar roots shaped his whole vibe, which made a lot of fans feel closer to him, because it seemed authentic. His lifetime achievements, including the way he helped shape Western television and film, show that he didn't just get stuck dealing with the frustrations from his rivalry. Instead, he managed to turn all that into something that stuck, a legacy that remains. Arness's legacy, meanwhile, is more or less tied to one of those longest-running TV dramas people can still quote even now. His name basically became almost interchangeable with Gunsmoke, and with that whole Western lawman ideal too. But it wasn't only the show. His dignified presence and that steady work ethic he kept showing set a kind of benchmark for other actors in the genre. You can argue his career proved that consistency and dedication can create a specific kind of fame. One that's less flashy and more dependable, the kind you recognize quickly. Clint Walker and James Arness may have been rivals, but their legacies together shaped the golden era of Western television. Their stories remind us how talent, toughness, and timing can create legends, even amid rivalry. If you enjoyed diving into this Hollywood saga, be sure to like and subscribe for more deep looks at classic stars and hidden stories.